So Dave's moving over to the tactical board, but yeah, this is something that stood out in Dave's notes and me at the game again, screaming about a problem that it seems really easy to identify if anybody is looking at tape. So if you guys want to look at this replay on the YouTube highlight package, it stands out at 2 minutes and 17 seconds to 2 minutes and 21 seconds, where you'll see Lennon making a movement that we've talked about in terms of allowing easy crosses in. But I think Dave will do a good job of showing.
I wanted to talk about this goal because it has, in my opinion, everything that's wrong tactically about our team. And the thing about it is, a lot of people are saying, well, some of our players are not good enough. And it's not that I disagree completely, but I think that what we do tactically makes the players be in situations where their weaknesses get exposed, right? And so that, I think, is the problem.
Right.
Okay, so this goal starts out with a New England goal kick, which you wouldn't necessarily think is the most dangerous situation in the world. And it was one of these classics. So I have it drawn up basically where it was when they hit the goal kick. Like all 20 players were within a box you could have drawn in the middle of the field. I think actually I have it a little bit pushed over. It was a little bit towards one side, but basically that's the same where the box was. Okay. And what's interesting about this box of players, right? So Etienne and Papa Giorgio and Araujo are the three forwards, and Omada's playing behind them. Neither of them, none of them were not marking. Now, you wouldn't necessarily expect any of our forwards to mark. Almada, you might have thought on a goal kick might be back doing something. He wasn't, but that's fine to me. If that's what you're going to play or whatever. The thing about it is they had three players in the middle of the field, and we had two problems. So first of all, as we've noticed, our defensive midfielder, Ibarra, who's had a terrific season, right? He was standing right next to Purata and Miles. And if you watch the beginning of the clip, which you can only see if you go back on Apple TV, not on the highlights, I was kind of like, why in a goal kick is Ibarra standing right next to Purata, right? Yeah. Because they only had two players forward. It was like this, so I couldn't really understand it. But what happened was the moment the ball was kicked in the air, so the ball's somewhere in the air here, Purata is clearly so worried about someone getting behind him. He went like this. He dropped 5 yards immediately. Which, okay, so that's fine, right? Obviously he wants to keep everything in front of him. He was trying to hold him offside and then keep everything in front of him. Right. But that then becomes the reason why Ibarra has to be there, because he's just abandoning that whole spot, right? Yeah. So Ibarra basically has been asked to help Purata and Miles, even though there was only one striker there. So he could have been in the middle, but he was holding Miles' hand even after Purata dropped. Now, Josetu was standing there, and he was actually looking around, and he was like, there's three guys here. And he kind of just took up a spot in the middle, which in fairness to him is 3v1 in the middle of the park. So, what are you going to do? Right. So anyway, this ball gets played and we're really dominant in the air. So who wins the ball? It's Miles Robinson. Okay. So Miles Robinson heads it out. Okay. And it falls to the midfielder, I think right here. Okay. Now, Ibarra, who is, I think alert to the danger, right? Take that back. It goes all the way past everybody to the New England back line. So he heads it pretty far, right? And then one of the New England defenders brought it down and actually played it into number 7 in this case. I don't know what was number 7 in there. Right?
Broke the first line.
Right. So it broke this fine because Josetu couldn't possibly mark 3v1. There was got to be there was two guys open.
Someone who was going to get open.
He had two choices, right? And he could make either of those choices. Okay. So now Ibarra. So the first thing I have wrong on this situation is why our defensive midfielder needs to drop so deep to hold the hand of our center backs, because that creates a hole in the midfield where we're getting overmatched. Everybody keeps saying that Ibarra and Josetu are getting killed in the midfield, and it's true. But it's not Ibarra's fault. Ibarra's playing right next to the two center backs. When you do that and you leave 3v1 in the midfield, there's no way we're not going to get killed.
Yeah. So, and your point is that has to be his instructions.
It is clearly his instruction, because in a normal situation, your defensive midfield would have been here, and at least it's 3v2, right? So in any case, so Ibarra is over here when it's headed back, and he comes charging out to mark this, right? Which is what he should do, right? I mean, he's got to address that. Okay, so now the interesting thing is that Gutman, as you can see, the other second thing that we have a problem is all of our outside backs get pinched in so far. And actually, they had players move
they had a
wide
lot out
at this point.
They had a couple out on the right side.
Yeah, well, what happens in this play is that Gil, who's their best player, right, makes a run here. So Gutman was standing sort of next to Parada, and Gil makes this run right across, okay? And this player wasn't so far. It was somewhere around here. So Gutman had a choice. Right? Gutman could have either tracked the run, or he can stay next to Parada as his pinched in role. So what do you think he chooses to do?
He pinches in and holds Parada's hand.
Yeah, he stayed. He literally stayed, and he watched Gil come all the way out here, and he stayed in here with nobody. The two of them were on nobody. Now Parada was further back, was here. But nobody was out there, right? Yeah. So this is the second situation I have. So Ibarra made a really good job to pressure admirably, right? And this is what I keep talking about. It doesn't matter if you pressure, if this guy has an open pass out here, which is what happens, right? You cannot pressure unless you have it marked up out of the back. And in this case, he had an easy ball. Ibarra put a lot of pressure on him, but he was like, there's a wide open guy, and he played it out to Gil. Right. So once he played it out to Gil, right, then finally Gutman was like, right, I actually have to go out. So he came all the way out here. But by the time he had this, Gil had all day to dribble, and he actually dribbled back in the middle. Right. And then the third problem that they had is so Gil. Miles. So this happened here, I think, made a run or whatever. But I can't remember who it was on this situation, but Gil came across here, and Gutman had to try to defend him and was trying to whatever. And he actually found an open player here, and Lennon kept pinching in just with Miles. They ended up sort of like this, right? And while this was all going on, this guy came here. Yeah. Okay. And as Mikey Dobbs shows on the clip, right?
Like I was screaming at the top of my lungs at the game, by the way. I was like, he's wide open on the run. It's like, why is Lennon so far in there? And you watch him in the replay, he literally runs in and
yeah, so they ended up something like this. And it was I think Gil played directly across to here. And as you're talking about on the replay, right? So Miles had him marked up like he was straight ahead of him, right? I think he was maybe in a little bit more here, right? But Lennon, who was a little bit here, came over.
And I think Ibarra is actually even further back in this play too. Yeah, he's in a pretty good position.
He's sort of like this. So Lennon comes over here to help here. Why? It's 1v4 or something like that, right? But all he does is he then gets a situation where, he comes out here.
Madness.
Right. And so then now you have a situation where he had an opportunity to absolutely cross wide open. Right. And
all that number 4 in this case, I don't know who the player was, number 4 in the tactical board. All he was doing is just looking up the entire time across the field.
Yeah.
As that ball rolled across to him and Lennon retreated back over to him.
Yeah. So Parata and Gutman actually end up trying to track this run, and they do an okay job, right? But he just gets in a little bit behind him, and it's served to here, and it's a goal on the back post. Was it Gil who scored it?
I don't know.
The other guy.
I don't remember.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the point being that, so here's the tactical problems, right? So first of all, you have a defensive midfielder who's abandoning the middle because he's holding hands with the center backs. Everything seems to be designed to make sure our center backs don't get beat. The defensive midfielder has to have
Miles Robinson. I don't understand why we are doing that.
They're good. Even Parata's
right.
solid.
Why? Let them defend. They're good. Like if they start running through our midfield and they get beat like 12 times, fine, then maybe make an adjustment. But they're not getting beaten at all.
Or maybe try if Parata is going to be the one who gets beat, right?
Right.
If either one,
someone's going to get beat.
If Parata is getting run over, then we got this Peruvian national, Abram. At least we could give another depth try to someone who's only got 116 minutes.
Yeah. So I think that, we one of the things we haven't talked about is the midfield a lot.
Yeah.
And we're getting overrun in the midfield. And people are like, why we're getting overrun in the midfield is despite the fact that we typically do not this year have two airplanes completely. We tend to have one of the two back. It's usually Gutman, but sometimes when Gutman is up, Lennon is occasionally back. We have three in the back more often than we did last year anyway. Last year it was automatic. It's a little better this year, right? But even when we do that, Ibarra goes right back and sits right in front of the front two. Yeah. And what that does is
it leaves challenging for
it's leaving Josetu as the sole midfielder because Almada's not really marking anybody, and he shouldn't be. He should be the guy who's open all the time, right? You don't ask Messi to, be your center midfielder. But he needs help. First of all, Josetu is not good, right? He's really not. But second of all, even if he were good, you cannot consistently play 3v1 and win it. And on top of all that, even if he could somehow play 3v1, and as Sosa sometimes performs miracles, right? They have an outlet out wide all the time because the guys are pinched in, which means we don't have it marked up out of the back. So they have the outlet, the pressure doesn't work. So that's problem number 2.
Yeah.
They don't have the outlet marked up. And then even when they recover on all that, they still insist on pinching in. So they came all the way back across the field and had a guy out wide. So there's the 3 problems: abandoning the midfield, not having it marked up so you can't pressure, and pinching in where we're giving up free crosses. And that's why we're giving up soft goals.
Yeah. I mean, in that New England game, there was the other goal where they attacked down the right side. We left the guy wide open again on Gutman's side to serve in a free kick. It's just over and over again.
I mean, Gutman has had a horrible season defensively. I mean, he's been awful, but I don't think it's actually that he's been awful. He's just never out there. He's scrambling out there because he's pinched in so far.
And people are able to just run at him.
If he would literally be allowed to go match up with the guy, he'd be fine.
Yeah.
Now, is there an advantage to this? Like, what do we have any sense what Pineda might be thinking? Because, like you said, it seems like he's trying to protect our center backs.
In 1978, nobody could cross the ball and score because the ball was hard, and nobody did that. So it was always thought to be that you have to defend the middle. That's what all the coaches told me, and I think our tactics haven't caught up.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying this is good for when I was like 2 years old.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think Pineda is alone in doing this. A lot of them are.
We were all trained to pinch in when we grew up.
But anybody who's watching the modern game of football will realize that in the modern game of football, you cannot give people consistently the chance to cross under no pressure because they can serve a good ball like Lennon can, for example.
Yeah.
And if you do that, they're going to score.
Yeah.
Right.
And I could see it when it was coming in the third goal, right? You could feel it coming even after we took the lead 3-2 late. You're like, we're going to give up a cross because after I might as well, while we're talking about it, on the third goal, right? We just had to see out the game, right? I believe that Pineda brought in a third center back. Did he bring in Ibarra? We should go check that. But we were playing 3 center backs, I think, at that point. So he brought on or maybe he brought on Sosa, whatever. He brought on an extra defender, right? So we had an extra defender in that game, right? And the crazy thing with the 5 players playing in the middle, we still pinched in, right? And we still gave an open cross. That last goal came off of an open cross, even when we had the extra defender in the game. So you're like, it doesn't matter if you park the bus. People are like, well, he parked the bus and we still gave up a goal. What do you want from Pineda? I don't want us to pinch in when we have an extra defender. I mean, I don't want us to pinch in ever, but certainly not when we have an extra center back. What were we thinking, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I have.
So yeah, what minute did they score on that? They scored in the 87th minute.
Yeah.
Or no, we scored in the 87th.
Yeah, they
minute?
scored an extra time. It
Extra
was like
time.
90 something.
plus 3 they scored.
Mhm.
Substitutions just before that, Sosa came on for Araujo.
Yeah, so we brought in another defender.
Yeah.
I knew we had an extra defender on the field. Even he parked the
Yeah.
bus, and we still left the guy wide open to cross. So if you're gonna do that, you would say, "Look, okay, we parked the bus. We have extra defenders. So now, Gutman, you go out there and match up. Who cares? You know, if you gamble and you get beat, there's 3 more guys in the center, right?
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Why? I mean, why? Why? I got nothing.
All right. Anything else on tactical board?
No,
We're gonna come. All right.
I think that in a nutshell explains our entire season. When we've been talking about the few extra goals that we give up, the so-called soft goals that Pineda keeps talking about, that's it.